The house crouched quietly at the forest's edge, where the trees thinned and the earth softened into moss and wildflowers. It was a structure older than the village that lay beyond the hills, a dwelling braided with years' whispered secrets, and the subtle pulse of the seasons caught in a delicate balance. Its stones bore the moss of countless springs and the frost of many winters, and the wood that framed its tired windows seemed to breathe with the slow rhythm of the earth itself. Time here did not march forward like elsewhere, measured by the clatter of bells or the ticking of clocks. Instead, it ebbed and flowed, drawn by the slow dance of light and shadow, the sigh of wind through leaves, and the quiet settling of snow. The house was a sentry to the turning world, a keeper of moments where spring paused in the blush of dawn, summer lingered in the long hum of afternoon, autumn breathed in the scent of falling leaves, and winter held its hush beneath silvered branches. It was as if the very essence of the seasons had found refuge within these walls, a place where change waited patiently, neither rushed nor delayed. Mara moved among the trees with the softness of a shadow, her presence as natural as the moss beneath her feet. She was the house's current guardian, a woman whose life had become entwined with the dwelling's ancient heartbeat. Her hands, callous from tending gardens and repairing worn hinges, held a quiet reverence for the space she inhabited. Mara's eyes, deep and steady, seemed to see beyond the surface of things, to read the language spoken by shifting light, the whisper of wind, and the subtle color changes in the leaves. She wore a cloak spun from the muted hues of earth and sky, blending her into the landscape as naturally as the house itself. The house stood, humble and enduring, like a sentinel watching over the border between wild forest and cultivated land. Its stones, worn by centuries of rain and sun, were a patchwork of warm grays and soft browns, their surfaces mottled with lichen and moss that spread like ancient script. The roof, steep and covered in dark shingles, bore the weight of many winters, each tile a quiet testament to endurance. Small windows framed in weathered wood caught the light with a gentle gratitude, offering glimpses of the world beyond while holding fast the quiet within. A narrow path, worn smooth by footsteps long past, wound from the forest's edge to the house's stout door. Along its edges, wild thyme and delicate ferns reached toward the light, their green a soft contrast to the muted stone. The air here was thick with the scent of earth and pine, with the faintest trace of something older, the lingering breath of seasons breathing slowly, waiting. Mara paused at the threshold, her hand resting lightly on the rough wood of the door. The house greeted her not with words, but with a warmth that settled deep into her bones, a quiet anchor in a world that often rushed too quickly. She stepped inside, the door closing behind her with a soft thud, sealing out the shifting winds and the restless world beyond. Inside, the air was cool and carried the faint scent of wood smoke and aged stone. The walls, thick and uneven, seemed to hold the weight of countless stories, their silence a language of patience and watchfulness. Light filtered through the windows, casting long soft shadows that stretched like fingers across worn floorboards. Each step Mara took echoed gently, a small sound in the vast stillness. The house was no ordinary building. It was a place where the pulse of nature could be felt in every corner, where the walls seemed to breathe with the slow, steady rhythm of the earth. Time here was a different thing. Not a relentless forward march but a gentle ebb, a tide that rose and fell with the season's quiet breath. Mara lived within this rhythm, her days shaped by the delicate cadence of light and shadow, of wind and rain. She moved through the rooms with the ease of one who had come home after a long journey. Her fingers traced the edges of wooden beams and the curve of a worn mantelpiece, as if greeting old friends. The house responded in kind, the warmth of the hearth deepening, the faintest creak of floorboards shifting in welcome. Mara's presence was not an intrusion but a part of the house's slow, deliberate breathing. Outside, the forest pressed close, a wall of green and brown that held the secrets of countless seasons. It was a place where the changing world seemed to pause, where the usual rush of days softened into something quieter, more attentive. The house stood as a guardian of this stillness, a threshold between the wild and the tamed, between the past and the present. Mara's role as caretaker was not one of mere maintenance. She was the keeper of time's gentle turning, the steward of a place where the seasons were allowed to rest, to gather their strength before moving on. Her days were shaped not by clocks or schedules but by the subtle shifts in light, the scent of rain on earth, the slow unfurling of leaves. She moved with the seasons, tending the house as it tended to her, a partnership woven from quiet understanding. Her mornings began with the soft light of dawn filtering through the east-facing windows, a light that carried the promise of spring, even in the depths of winter. She would open the door to let in the cool air, listening to the forest's breath and the distant call of birds. The house seemed to exhale with her, the walls absorbing the freshness of new beginnings. Mara's feet knew the worn path from door to hearth, from window to garden, each step a conversation with the space she inhabited. She gathered herbs from the small patch of earth pressed against the house's southern wall, tending them with care. The scent of thyme, rosemary, and lavender mingled with the damp earth, filling the air with a quiet vitality. She was a figure of stillness and motion, a living thread binding the house to the world beyond. Her hands mended the cracks in plaster and the loose tiles on the roof, her eyes watching the slow dance of shadows across the floor. She spoke softly to the house, not with words but with gestures, a touch here, a careful placement of objects there, weaving a subtle dialogue that honored the dwelling's ancient spirit. The village beyond the hills knew of the house's peculiar nature. Stories passed from lips to ears spoke of a place where time slowed, where the seasons seemed to fold into one another like pages in a worn book. Few ventured close, respecting the boundary between the ordinary world and this quiet sanctum. Mara was both part of that world and apart from it, a bridge between the village's bustle and the house's deep stillness. She carried no burdens of haste or worry. Her life was measured in the turning of days, in the soft unfolding of light and shadow. The house, with its moss-covered stones and weathered wood, was a living thing, patient, enduring, and waiting. Mara moved within its embrace, a silent promise that the seasons here might rest a little longer, that time might be held with gentle hands. Outside, the wind stirred the leaves, carrying with it the scent of rain and the distant thunder of clouds gathering. The house listened, absorbing the coming storm like a slow breath held in the depths of the earth. Mara stood by the window, watching the sky shift in color from pale blue to the soft gray of an impending shower. In this place, the storm was not a disruption but a part of the endless cycle, a reminder that change was both constant and gentle. The house, perched at the forest's edge, was a place where the world's hurried rhythm could pause, where the seasons found a sanctuary. It held its breath alongside Mara, waiting for the next moment when spring might bloom, summer might glow, autumn might deepen, or winter might whisper its quiet song. Here time was not a master but a companion, moving with the grace of the turning earth, the sigh of the wind, and the steady pulse of the heart. Mara's gaze softened, the weight of years lifting as she settled into the house's patient embrace. She was both keeper and guest, a presence woven into the fabric of this ancient place. The house, with its stones and wood, its moss and shadow, awaited the slow unfolding of the seasons, cradling them gently until they were ready to move once more. And in that waiting the world found its quiet heartbeat, steady and sure, like the pulse of the earth beneath her feet. The house breathed in seasons, each room a quiet testament to the passage of time folded gently within its walls. Mara moved through the spaces with a knowing ease, as if each chamber were a familiar melody sung softly by the earth itself. She began in the southern room, where the light poured generously through a wide window, spilling onto a worn wooden sill that held a small garden of ferns and a bowl of lemons, their yellow skins bright against the soft green leaves. This was the room of spring, a place where warmth lingered even when the air outside carried the chill of distant winter. Here the scent of damp earth and fresh growth filled the air. Moss clung to the corners of stone hearths, and delicate shoots pushed through cracks in ancient floorboards. Mara tended the plants with gentle hands, her fingers brushing the leaves as if coaxing the season to linger a little longer. The room held a promise, the quiet hope of renewal, the soft unfolding of life after the long sleep of frost. Light caught the edges of every surface, making dust motes dance like tiny blossoms in the air. From there Mara wandered westward, drawn to the summer room where golden light streamed through a wide-open window, turning specks of dust into shimmering motes that floated lazily in the warm air. The walls here were painted in soft hues of amber and ochre, colors that captured the heat of the sun, and the scent of sun-warmed salt from the distant sea. A low wooden table bore the marks of many hands, smoothed by years of use, while a basket in the corner held worn fishing nets and shells collected from the nearby shore. Mara often left the door ajar, allowing the sounds of the village children playing to drift in, laughter mingling with the distant cry of gulls and the rustle of grasses in the sea breeze. This was a room alive with memory and light, where the long days of summer seemed to stretch endlessly, and the air was thick with the scent of herbs and sun-baked stone. Here time moved with the lazy ease of waves rolling onto the shore, each moment a slow embrace of warmth and light. Turning north, Mara entered the autumn room, where the wood darkened to a deep, rich brown and the air was tinged with the smell of wood smoke and cooling bread. The walls bore shelves lined with books, their spines worn and softened by countless fingers seeking stories and solace. A thick woolen blanket lay folded on a low chair, inviting rest in the fading light. Leaves pressed between the pages of old volumes whispered the passing of seasons in their brittle rustle. This room was a sanctuary for quiet reflection, a space where the world outside slowed to the soft crackle of embers and the gentle turning of pages. Mara often sat here in the fading afternoon, the amber light casting a glow that made the wood grain shimmer like liquid gold. The scent of brewing tea mingled with the earthy aroma of fallen leaves, weaving a tapestry of comfort and remembrance. It was a place to gather the stories of the past, to savor the richness of endings and the promise of rest. The final chamber lay to the east, reserved for winter's hush. Painted in shades of white and pale gray, it was adorned with simple comforts: a basket of driftwood gathered from storm-tossed shores, a kettle that hummed softly on a low stove, and thick blankets folded with care. The light here was soft and diffuse, filtering through frost-patterned windows that caught the muted glow of short days and long nights. The air was crisp, carrying the faint scent of pine and cold stone. Mara moved through this space with a deliberate calm, tending the fire and arranging the wood with care. The room was a refuge from the harshness outside, a place where the stillness of winter was embraced rather than endured. Here the world seemed to hold its breath, wrapped in white silence, waiting patiently for the slow return of warmth and light. The kettle's soft whistle became a signal in the quiet, a gentle reminder that life continued even in the coldest hours. Each room held its own season, a distinct breath in the continuous story of the house. Mara's life was woven through these spaces like a thread of light and shadow, her presence nourishing the delicate balance between past and present, growth and rest. She moved with the rhythm of the house, tending its needs with a quiet devotion that spoke of deep understanding and care. Her daily routines unfolded naturally, shaped by the subtle cues of light and scent that marked the passing of hours. Morning light found her in the spring room, where she gathered herbs and tended seedlings, her hands steady and sure. By midday, she might be in the summer chamber, mending nets or setting a table for the simple meals that sustained her. Afternoon often found her in the autumn room, reading by the fire or writing letters by the dimming light. As evening deepened, she settled into the winter space, stoking the fire and listening to the soft song of the kettle. The house responded to her presence like a living organism, its walls and floors shifting with the subtle changes of the day. The fire crackled brighter at her touch, the shadows lengthened with her movements, and the air seemed to pulse with a quiet energy that mirrored her own. Mara was not merely a resident but a steward, a partner in the delicate dance of seasons held within these walls. Outside, the world moved in its usual rush, but here time took on a different shape. The house was a vessel that held the seasons gently, allowing them to rest and transform without disturbance. Mara's care ensured that the house remained a sanctuary, a place where the natural cycles could unfold in harmony with human life. She often paused at windows, watching the changing light and listening to the subtle music of the forest and fields. The rustle of leaves, the distant call of birds, the whisper of wind through branches. All these sounds wove themselves into the fabric of her days, grounding her in the present while connecting her to the timeless flow of nature. Mara's relationship with the house was one of mutual respect and quiet companionship. She understood its moods and needs, responding with tenderness and attention. The house, in turn, offered her refuge and rhythm, a place where the restless currents of life could settle into something steady and true. In the spring room, small buds unfurled under Mara's careful watch, their green leaves soft and fresh against the cool stone walls. She watered them with water drawn from a well nearby, its clarity a mirror of the house's own purity. The scent of new growth filled the air, mingling with the faint aroma of wood smoke from the hearth. The summer room welcomed the afternoon sun with open shutters, the golden light warming Mara's skin as she worked. She often left the door ajar, inviting the sounds of village children to mingle with the scent of salt and wild herbs. Here the house felt alive with the pulse of life and light, a celebration of long sun-drenched days. In the autumn room, Mara found solace among the books and the soft glow of the fire. She read letters from old friends, their words a bridge between past and present, their stories weaving into the house's own history. The scent of cooling bread and dried leaves wrapped around her like a familiar shawl, comforting and true. The winter room, with its quiet hush and soft blankets, was a place of rest and renewal. Mara tended the fire with care, listening to the gentle whistle of the kettle as water warmed. Outside, snow gathered softly against the windows, muffling the world in white silence. Inside, the house held its breath, wrapped in the gentle embrace of waiting. Mara's days flowed like the seasons themselves, a gentle cycle of light and shadow, warmth and coolness, growth and rest. The house and its rooms were not just spaces but living parts of a whole, each contributing its voice to the quiet song of time held gently in place. She moved through her tasks with a graceful purpose, mending, tending and nurturing, ensuring that the house remained a sanctuary for the seasons to breathe. The delicate balance was maintained not by force but by a quiet understanding, a shared rhythm between Mara and the house, a story told in light, scent and touch. And so the house continued its timeless vigil, a place where spring blossomed, summer glowed, autumn deepened and winter whispered, all held within the steady hands of Mara, the steward of seasons. Visitors came to the house not by chance, but drawn as if by a thread woven through whispers and half-remembered stories. They arrived on quiet feet, seeking something elusive, a breath of stillness, a moment caught between the turning seasons, a refuge from the world's relentless hurry. Mara met them with the same gentle grace she offered the house, a presence that did not intrude but simply welcomed, like the soft unfolding of dawn. One such visitor was Tomas, a traveler whose eyes carried the weight of loss like a shadow stretched long across the land. He came with a worn bag slung low, his steps hesitant yet hopeful. Mara found him at the door, standing beneath the low eaves where moss clung like ancient promises. Without words, she opened the door wider, inviting him inside to the sanctuary where the seasons slept. Inside, Tomas moved slowly, as if testing the quiet, measuring the stillness that hung like a soft veil. The house seemed to hold its breath around him, the air thick with unspoken histories and gentle welcomes. Mara showed no haste but guided him with calm hands. A cup of warm tea in the autumn room, a place by the fire where the wood scent mingled with the fading light. As days passed, Tomas began to shed the weight he carried. The house, with its rooms alive with the essence of seasons, wrapped him in a healing embrace. The spring room's promise of renewal coaxed a tentative smile. The summer room's golden warmth stirred memories of laughter long buried. In the autumn room he found solace in the quiet company of books and the slow turning of pages, each one a step toward mending. The winter room offered a stillness that soothed the restless ache, a place where grief could rest without judgment. Mara watched with quiet understanding, her presence steady like the house itself. She did not rush healing, nor did she demand explanation. The house offered its own language, the soft crackle of embers, the whisper of wind through the eaves, the gentle pulse of time held in balance. Tomas learned to listen, to breathe in the slow rhythm of days shaped by light and shadow, by scent and sound. The house was more than shelter. It was a vessel of memory, a keeper of stories woven through the lives of those who had come before. Mara often found traces of former inhabitants in small details. A faded coat hung on a peg, a chipped mug resting patiently on a windowsill, the faint scent of lavender lingering in a forgotten drawer. These whispers of past lives threaded through the present, forming a tapestry of shared experience and quiet companionship. The stories of those who had once dwelled here were not told in words but preserved in the house's very fabric. The creak of floorboards carried echoes of laughter and tears, the hearth's warmth held the imprint of countless hands, and the worn paths through the garden bore the footprints of feet long gone but never forgotten. Mara moved among these echoes with reverence, honoring the invisible lives that had shaped the house's soul. Visitors like Tomas were woven into this living tapestry, their presence adding new threads to the house's enduring story. Others came seeking refuge from storms both literal and of the heart, a child fleeing the noise of a distant city, a widow carrying memories too heavy to hold alone, a poet searching for silence to hear the voice of inspiration. Each found a place within the house's embrace, a moment of rest where the seasons themselves seemed to soften and gather strength. Mara's role extended beyond caretaker. She was a guardian of these fragile moments, a witness to transformation unfolding in quiet spaces. Her kindness was neither loud nor insistent but steady and sure, like the slow turning of the earth beneath the sky. She shared no grand promises, only the gentle assurance that here, time could be held lightly, grief could find company, and hope might flicker anew. Sometimes in the evenings the house would hold gatherings unspoken, where visitors and memories intertwined. Around the fire, the air thick with the scent of pine and drying herbs, soft voices would rise in hesitant song or whispered story. Shadows danced on the walls, weaving patterns that felt like old rhythms, ancient and new entwined. Mara would sit among them, her eyes reflecting the flickering flames, a silent guardian of the sanctuary's fragile light. The village beyond the hills watched from a distance, understanding the house as a place apart, a sanctuary where the seasons paused and the restless found rest. Some spoke in hushed tones of miracles, others dismissed it as old superstition, but those who had crossed the threshold knew something deeper. The house was a vessel of healing, a living poem written in stone and wood, light and shadow. Mara carried these stories with quiet humility, never seeking to explain the house's mysteries, but honoring their presence. She knew that the house's power was not in grand gestures but in the small tender moments. A hand offered in silence, a shared cup of tea, the simple act of being present. These were the threads that wove visitors into the fabric of the house, binding past and present in a delicate dance. The house itself seemed to listen and respond, its walls absorbing sorrow and joy alike, its hearth radiating warmth to those who needed it most. In the stillness, the pulse of countless lives beat softly, a rhythm that carried forward through time. Mara moved among these echoes, a quiet presence anchored in the house's enduring spirit. Objects scattered through the rooms told fragments of stories. A child's forgotten kite resting against a chair, a letter half-written and folded carefully on a desk, an old shawl draped over a bench. These traces were not forgotten but held in patient waiting, like the house itself, ready to welcome new chapters and new voices. Visitors came and went, each leaving a mark as subtle as a footprint pressed into soft earth. Mara watched their comings and goings with a calm heart, knowing that the house held them safely, cradled in the gentle passage of seasons. The boundaries between past and present blurred here, stories overlapping like the layers of fallen leaves, each one adding depth and color to the whole. The house's sanctuary was not a refuge from life's storms, but a space where those storms might be understood, weathered, and softened. Mara's presence was a steady light in this process, a quiet assurance that even in the darkest hours, the slow turning of time and the gentle breath of the house offered a path toward peace. In the mornings, as light spilled through the windows, the house seemed to hum softly with the energy of new arrivals and old memories intertwining. Mara moved through the rooms, tending fires and preparing spaces with care, her hands weaving comfort into the fabric of the day. Visitors stirred, drawn into the house's gentle embrace, their burdens lightening with each passing moment. The seasons continued their timeless dance, held tenderly by the house and those who dwelled within. Each visitor became a thread in the ongoing tapestry, their stories echoing alongside those who had come before. Mara remained the steadfast steward, a quiet guardian of the sanctuary where time slowed, memories lingered, and healing took root in the spaces between moments. The house, steady in its ancient ways, welcomed change as gently as it held the seasons. One evening, under a sky heavy with the promise of rain, a traveler arrived whose sorrow seemed to seep into the very stones. Lila came with quiet steps and eyes shadowed by loss, carrying memories too fragile to hold within the rush of the world. Mara met her at the door, wordless, offering the soft hush of the house, a place where grief might find rest without disturbance. Lila's arrival was like a new note added to a slow, unfolding melody. She moved through the rooms with tentative care, her fingers brushing the familiar walls as if seeking a forgotten language. Mara guided her with a calm presence, never pushing, always attentive to the delicate balance between shelter and space. The house adjusted around her, the hearth's glow deepening in welcome, the air softening with the scent of herbs and wood smoke. In the spring room, Lila lingered by the window, watching the slow unfurling of new leaves. The warmth there coaxed a faint smile, as if the tender green whispered promises of renewal directly to her heart. Mara watched quietly, knowing that healing was a gradual unfolding, a gentle easing rather than a sudden bloom. The house held its breath with Lila, offering the soft embrace of possibility without expectation. The summer room became a refuge in the heat of her sorrow, its golden light wrapping around her like a balm. Here the sounds of distant village life drifted in, mingling with the scent of sun-baked stone and wild herbs. Mara left the door ajar, inviting the gentle chorus of life beyond the walls to seep inside. In this space Lila began to find small moments of peace, the long days stretching slowly, allowing time for quiet reflection and the easing of pain. Autumn's room welcomed her next, its rich wood and amber light a sanctuary for contemplation. Surrounded by books and the scent of cooling bread, Lila settled into the comforting weight of stories and silence. The fire crackled softly, its warmth a steady pulse beneath the fragile quiet. Mara offered a cup of tea, the steam rising like a silent promise, and in these moments, the house's transformative spirit moved gently, weaving threads of comfort through the fragile tapestry of grief. Winter's chamber with its pale walls and soft blankets held a hush that embraced her like a quiet breath. Here the world outside faded into a white stillness, and the house's heartbeat slowed to match the rhythm of waiting and rest. Mara tended the fire, the kettle's soft whistle a steady song in the cold. Lila's presence seemed to settle the house itself, as if her sorrow and the house's enduring spirit found a delicate balance between permanence and change. Throughout her stay, Lila's movements became part of the house's living rhythm. Morning light would find her tending small tasks, gathering wood or arranging herbs, her hands learning the language of care that Mara had spoken for years. The house responded, its walls warming in her presence, its quiet spaces breathing with a new gentle vitality. Mara observed this slow transformation with a steady heart, witnessing without interference the delicate dance unfolding between visitor and sanctuary. Outside, the forest shifted with the seasons, a reminder of the wider world beyond the house's embrace. Mara's relationship with the nearby village remained a quiet thread connecting past and present, wilderness and human life. She moved between these worlds like a bridge, carrying news and kindness, bringing the house's calm into the bustling village and gathering stories to weave into the fabric of her sanctuary. The house itself stood as a living ecosystem, not merely a shelter but a place where nature and humanity intertwined in subtle harmony. Moss grew thick on its stones and wildflowers pressed against its walls, their roots drawing strength from earth and stone alike. The wind carried the scent of pine and rain, weaving through open windows and rustling the curtains with a soft sigh. Mara tended these connections with care, understanding that the house's spirit was bound to the land as surely as to the people who found refuge within. In the evenings, Mara and Lila would sit by the fire, the flickering flames casting shadows that danced like memories on the walls. Words were few, but the silence between them held its own language, a shared understanding that healing need not be spoken aloud to take root. The house embraced this quiet communion, its walls absorbing the gentle pulse of renewal, its hearth glowing steady and sure. Mara's tasks continued with a deliberate rhythm, mending worn fabrics, tending the garden, preparing simple meals. Each act was a thread woven into the house's ongoing story, a testament to the delicate balance between care and letting go. The seasons moved through the rooms as always, spring's green promise, summer's golden warmth, autumn's rich reflection, winter's quiet rest, each mirrored in the slow unfolding of Lila's healing. The nearby village remained a part of this cycle. Mara would walk the worn paths to the market, exchanging news and kindness with familiar faces. These visits were brief but meaningful, a reminder that the house was not isolated but part of a larger community. Mara carried the spirit of the sanctuary with her, offering a quiet presence that spoke of patience and hope. Storms came and went, their arrival marked by the sharp scent of rain and the restless wind that rattled shutters and stirred the trees. The house gathered itself against the tempest, its stones solid and unyielding, its roof holding fast as the world outside roared and raged. Mara moved calmly through these moments, tending fires and securing windows, her presence a steady anchor amid the storm's fury. After the storms passed, the world emerged refreshed, the air cleansed and the earth softened. The house too seemed renewed, its walls glowing warm in the new light. Mara and Lila would step outside to breathe the fresh air, the forest alive with the scent of wet pine and earth. These moments of renewal echoed the house's own spirit, resilient, patient, and quietly transformative. Lila's time in the house became a journey of gentle change, marked not by grand gestures but by small steady steps toward peace. Mara's presence was a quiet guide, a steady hand that held the fragile balance between permanence and evolution. The house itself was a partner in this journey, its rooms and walls shifting subtly to meet the needs of those who sought its sanctuary. Through it all, the seasons continued their slow, patient dance, a cycle of growth, rest, and renewal that echoed the rhythms of human life. Mara and Lila moved within this dance, their lives entwined with the house's enduring spirit. The sanctuary was more than stone and wood. It was a living testament to the power of healing held in quiet spaces, to transformation embraced without disturbance. And so the house stood, a bridge between worlds, a place where sorrow could soften, and hope might quietly grow. Mara tended this delicate balance with care, a steward of change and continuity, a guardian of the gentle spirit that lived within the stones and shadows. The seasons turned, the house breathed, and within its walls, life moved forward with the grace of slow, deliberate light. The house settled into the quiet fold of night, its breath slow and even, cradling the seasons as if they were dear children lulled into sleep. Outside, the tide whispered against the rocks, a gentle rhythm that echoed the house's own heartbeat, steady, patient, and true. Within these walls, time softened its edge, loosening the grip of hours and minutes until what remained was a delicate, unbroken thread woven between earth and sky, past and present, rest and renewal. Mara moved through the rooms with calm purpose, her steps light but sure, each gesture a quiet act of tending. The spring chamber held a soft glow, as if the promise of new life pulsed gently in the air. Ferns stirred in the stillness, their leaves catching the faintest breath of warmth, while the bowl of lemons rested like a sun captured in stone. Mara lingered by the window, her gaze tracing the slow dance of light on the moss-covered stones outside, a silent prayer woven in the language of seasons. The summer room was hushed now, the golden light faded to a warm ember glow that flickered softly against the walls. The scent of salt and sun-warmed herbs lingered, a memory held tightly in the air. Mara closed the door gently, sealing in the quiet, the sounds of distant children's laughter now a fading echo. Here time folded like a well-loved cloth, soft and familiar, its edges worn smooth by countless days of light and warmth. In the autumn chamber, shadows deepened into a rich tapestry of amber and brown. The wood grain shimmered faintly in the firelight, and the scattered leaves pressed between pages whispered secrets in the hush. Mara gathered a book from the shelf, its spine creased and softened, and traced the worn edges with reverence. This room held the weight of stories, of endings embraced and memories cherished, a space where the past and present met in the quiet glow of understanding. The winter room was wrapped in pale light, the frost-patterned windows catching the last shimmer of the day. A basket of driftwood sat ready by the hearth, and the kettle's soft hum filled the air with a gentle song. Mara stoked the fire slowly, watching the flames curl and rise, their warmth a steady pulse against the quiet chill. Here the house held its breath alongside the earth, a sanctuary of stillness waiting for the slow return of spring's tender light. Each room was a verse in the house's ongoing poem, a meditation on the cyclical nature of life, the sanctuary of home, and the quiet magic that thrives when one listens deeply. Mara's presence was the thread that wove these verses together, her care and attention a steady hand guiding the house's spirit through the season's endless dance. The cat, a silent companion, settled by the stove, its fur a soft ripple against the worn floorboards. It curled into a circle of warmth, eyes closing as the house dimmed its lights gradually room by room. Outside, stars winked through the clear night, their cold light a distant chorus to the house's gentle song. Time here was not the sharp edge of clocks but the soft pulse of breath and heartbeat, the slow turning of earth beneath sky. Mara moved with this rhythm, mending, preparing, and tending with a quiet devotion that honored the delicate balance of the space she called home. The kettle's whistle marked the rise of the moon, a signal woven from countless nights, a lullaby for the sleeping seasons. Storms came and went, their fury embraced rather than resisted. The house gathered itself in the wind's howl, its stones holding fast, its hearth glowing steady and sure. After the tempest passed, the world emerged renewed, the air crisp and clean, the earth softened like a sigh of relief. Mara would step outside then, breathing in the fresh scent of pine and rain, the forest alive with the promise of new beginnings. Neighbors knew the house as a place apart, where the seasons could rest and gather strength. On market days, Mara exchanged news and kindness, her presence a quiet reassurance in the village's bustling life. She carried the house's spirit with her, a gentle reminder of patience, care, and the enduring power of home. As the night deepened, Mara made her rounds, moving through each room with deliberate grace. She adjusted the blankets, tended the fire, and ensured the hearth's glow would hold through the dark hours. The house responded, a living thing breathing softly under her touch, its ancient heart steady and sure. Outside, the tide caressed the rocks with a patient hand, the stars scattered like silver seeds across the sky. The world loosened its grip on time, and the seasons drifted into a peaceful slumber, wrapped in the certainty of return. The house held this promise close, a sanctuary where rest and renewal were one and the same. Mara lingered by the window a moment longer, her eyes tracing the path of moonlight on the sea's dark surface. The house, the seasons, and the quiet village beyond were bound together in a delicate harmony, a testament to continuity, peace, and belonging. Here in this timeless refuge, the story of earth and sky, of growth and rest, wove itself anew with each breath, each heartbeat, each turning of the seasons. The cat's soft purr was a gentle rhythm in the hush, a final note in the house's lullaby. Mara's hands rested lightly on the windowsill, steady and sure, a silent promise that the seasons would sleep easy beneath this roof, and when morning came they would awaken once more. Outside, the sea whispered its ancient song, the stars blinked their slow rhythms, and the house, the keeper of seasons, the guardian of time's gentle turning, settled deeper into its dream, cradled by the world's endless tender embrace.